So it's funny that I planned to discuss this today, and just now we're receiving some comments from Hal Steinbrenner. As you could tell from the title, by the way, I'm Bryce Gelman. This is the first time. Nice to meet you. Today is going to be about the New York Yankees. It's been a while. I've kind of stayed away from the topic, mostly because it's been the start of the Knicks season, and I've been trying to focus on more positive things. But today, it appears that there is at least something positive when it comes to the New York Yankees, and that is the idea that Juan Soto, and we knew this yesterday by result of the article written by Bob Klapisch of NJ.com, essentially that the Yankees meeting with Soto, Hal said to Soto, whatever, he's 100% committed, whatever. We knew this. This was no surprise. But the idea that Soto came to Hal Steinbrenner with potential upgrades and ideas means that he is at least somewhat bought into the idea of staying a Yankee and continuing and finishing eventually his career with the New York Yankees. So we heard that. We saw that, and that was what this whole live stream was going to be about. And then just a few minutes ago, Hal Steinbrenner spoke to the media, and again, this is all happening in live time. But I'm going to update you on what Hal Steinbrenner had to say. And there is one thing that I would like to bring up out of everything that he did say, and it wasn't much. I mean, what do you expect him to say realistically? This is essentially the gist of what he said. And there isn't much to take away from this part specifically, but Hal Steinbrenner said he had a good meeting with Juan Soto. Went a couple hours, no details. Of course you're not getting details. There's nothing to take away from that. The idea there's no details, but there was some other stuff too. And this is from Tim Healy. Hal Steinbrenner, the importance of keeping Juan Soto, especially in the context of fans' desires. I've got years. I know what's expected of me. When was the last time we heard that from Hal Steinbrenner? And when was the last time the Yankees were in the mix for a major free agent? In this case, in the last case, he was a homegrown guy, but in this case, and hypothetically speaking, the idea that this player would be a Yankee in the past year. And the last time that happened, Aaron Judge. At the time, I, along with a bunch of other people out there, understood the importance and the make or break of bringing Aaron Judge back. And I think at the time, and we know this from the reporting that came after it and what Hal Steinbrenner ended up doing in bringing Aaron Judge back himself without Brian Cashman even being involved, is that Hal Steinbrenner feels the bullying. He feels the BS from the fans. He feels the angst. And the last time that happened was Aaron Judge. As I just said, what happened? What happened? Hal Steinbrenner made a call. He was overseas in Europe, and he locked up Aaron Judge for the rest of his career. Do I expect it to be as easy as it was with Judge with Soto? Absolutely not. This is a different story. This is a 26-year-old transcendent, generational superstar who you will have under control for the next 7-8 years in the prime of his career. You'll have him under control for 6-7 more years after that. Who he's going to be after that is anyone's guess. Hopefully, he doesn't turn into an Albert Pujols type situation. I digress, though. Albert Pujols was a lot older when he went on the open market and was signed by the Angels. This is a situation unlike any other that we've seen in terms of a position player, a hitter, coming into the league as a 19-year-old. As a teenager, being as good as Juan Soto has been consistently, and then entering a contract year at 25 years old with the opportunity to sign him at 26 years old. There's a reason why you hear it all around. Juan Soto has met with the Dodgers. He's met with the Mets. He's met with the Blue Jays. He's probably even met with the White Sox at this point. We know we get the Scott Boras BS. We get it. We've heard it in the past. We heard it with Garrett Cole. How many of it? Who else? We even heard it with Jordan Montgomery and then Blake Snell last year. How did that turn out? This is a different story. I don't think that anyone is doubting the idea that everyone is interested in Juan Soto, but everyone is having good meetings with Juan Soto. There's no money being talked about. I've gotten Red Sox fans that are my friends reaching out to me saying, "Oh, the Red Sox going to get Juan Soto?" They haven't even talked money. You think John Hetford? I'm not even getting into that. That's BS. That's we all know that. That's not happening. That's not happening. Even the Dodgers report, that's not happening as well. That's not happening. I really think in my heart of hearts, whether it be Steve Cohen or Hal Steinbrenner one of those guys will pony up just to ensure the fact that the Dodgers are not able to have a stranglehold of Major League Baseball for the next 10 years. That is not happening. So I just want to take a step back. If you're just joining now, I'm Bryce Gelman talking about Juan Soto and all the reports that we've seen recently and even more recently, the comments from Hal Steinbrenner that just came out right before I fired this up. But I think it's important to dissect what we are seeing from these reporters. Guys that are getting fed information, specifically John Heyman. Listen, none of this is for sure. I think people have their own opinions and beliefs about what he gets. And I think that he's a mouthpiece for Scott Boras, and he uses the mystery teams. We know the dialogue that comes out of these contract negotiations when Scott Boras is involved. Mystery team, 3 mystery teams. The case of Aaron Judge, and this wasn't even Scott Boras thing. There were mystery teams involved, but we've seen it happen so many times with Scott Boras. So I think at first, if you're a Yankee fan, as you can see, I am a Yankee fan. I'm talking about this in the perspective of being a Yankee fan. But I think as a Yankee fan, you saw Juan Soto after Game 5 of the World Series sitting at the top of the dugout, looking all dejected, as anyone would, realistically. But you thought, is this the last time you see Juan Soto in pinstripes? There was a reasonable feeling among us Yankees fans that, it could be. It absolutely could be. And it's time to worry. Listen, when the Yankees traded for Juan Soto, I went back because I don't think I ever deviated from what my original thoughts were. And it turns out I didn't. I thought at the time it was an overpay if you didn't do everything within your own power to bring Juan Soto back. Obviously, a disaster of a season aside, I don't think that was going to happen. And look at where we are right now. The Yankees made the World Series. Of course, they lost in devastating and humiliating fashion. But that terrible hypothetical never happened. Okay? So get that out of the question. I think the idea that the Yankees were as successful as they were this year, looking back, listen, I think you'd find it hard-pressed to find any Yankee fan who says that the last season was a success. Watching them flame out in the matter that they flamed out in the World Series, a winnable World Series, might I add. No one is saying that this Yankee season was a success, but on paper, it was the first time the Yankees made it to the World Series in 15 seasons. Okay, so that's a positive, right? Juan Soto isn't a Yankees fan. He hasn't had to deal with the amount of garbage that we've seen in recent years. He hasn't had to deal with the pain and the suffering. So that in and of itself is a win. He saw a team that, by all means, he looked very comfortable around, advance to the World Series, have a chance to win a World Series. Great. Terrific. That's all working, in the Yankees' favor. But the flip side of it, and any baseball fan, whether Met fan, Yankee fan, will tell you the exact same thing. You don't want to mess with Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen is the richest owner in sports. He's by far the richest owner in Major League Baseball. He's got the checkbook that realistically no one else can match. I was surprised with what happened with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. We've seen now a few times with the Carlos Correa situation. He ended up signing Correa, issues with the physical. He goes through 3 contracts, finally goes back to the Twins. Okay, fine. But we have not seen a bidding war with Steve Cohen where he's had to spend an unnecessary amount of money to get the guy he wanted to get. Out of respect to Hal Steinbrenner, out of respect to the Yankees, we didn't see that with Aaron Judge. We didn't really see any of that when it came to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. A guy in which, listen, it was very obvious with the multiple times, I believe, Steve Cohen and his contingency traveled out to Japan. They were the first team, I believe, to meet with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And it turns out they were right in the ballpark of where the Dodgers were. Now, am I saying that Yoshinobu and Juan Soto even compare? No. It's just a completely different story. But either way, we have yet to see what has been made out to be about Steve Cohen. The idea, we know he's the richest owner of sports, but when is he actually going to bring out his checkbook and make a guy an offer that they can't refuse. Will this be the moment? That is the concern among all the Yankees fans out there. And Mets fans are surely, positively hoping that what they have wished for, what they have prayed for over the course of the last 4 or 5 years since Steve Cohen bought the team from the Wilpons is this exact scenario. You can even say that this has been, well, realistically, what guys out there were the Mets looking towards like, hey, okay, that's going to be our guy. This is the guy. Right now, it's Juan Soto. It always has been. Hindsight's 20/20, but you get my point. What other generational superstar has entered free agency in the age that Juan Soto has? No one. No one. So this is a huge make or break moment when it comes to, not only just the rivalry between the Mets and the Yankees, between the fans, between the ownership groups. Will Steve Cohen offer an exorbitant amount of money to where Hal Steinbrenner backs off? That is the question. I am not. And I'm going to state this right now. I'm not believing any of the Soto to the Dodgers garbage. And you shouldn't either. I'm not even believing the Blue Jays rumors. They're rumors at this point. Everything is a rumor. Besides what you hear from the owners, besides what you hear from Juan Soto himself, and you won't hear anything. I'm not buying anything other than the fact that Juan Soto will either be a Yankee or he will be a Met. It's that simple. I think once you remove all of the BS that surrounds the situation, you put your blinders on, and you focus, you hone in on these two teams, that's where you're going to learn the most about the situation. And you've got reporters asking Hal Steinbrenner about the situation. He's not going to give you anything. And if you missed it, I'm Bryce Gelman talking about Juan Soto. Hal Steinbrenner just spoke to the media, albeit he didn't say much. But again, I just like to reiterate, he did say that the Yankees and Juan Soto had a good meeting of a couple of hours. Which team didn't have a good meeting? Even I said this earlier, even the Red Sox had a good meeting. And how could it possibly be a good meeting if the one thing that Juan Soto cares about was not discussed? Now, on the Yankee side of things, it's a different story because you know what they're willing to give up in order to retain Juan Soto. You know who attended that meeting. Boone, Cashman, Minaya, Randy Levine, and Hal Steinbrenner. Each guy had an individual opportunity to speak to Juan Soto. I don't know if that same opportunity was afforded to other teams, nor would it have really realistically made sense to allow them to. Juan Soto has a relationship with this team, of course, because he's played for them. He did play for them over the course of the last year. It's been almost a year to the day since the Yankees traded for Juan Soto. So there is an existing relationship. And something that caught my eye, caught my ear, was the idea that Juan Soto had suggestions for the Yankees in order to improve. And in that meeting, Hal Steinbrenner kept his ears open. I'm sure he took all of this in because you know that Juan Soto wants to win. Yes, money is important, but the worst team in the league, let's say the White Sox offered him $1 million over the next 10 years. He's not taking that contract. He wants to win. And he wanted a guarantee from Hal Steinbrenner that even if he's brought back, the Yankees will spend more. There are huge holes on this roster that the Yankees need to fill. Do you really trust that starting rotation? Do you really trust? They have no one at first base. Rizzo's gone. Good riddance. He was terrible over the course of the last year and a half, ever since the Tatis injury happened. The injury to Tatis's, his knee to the head, you know. What are the Yankees doing at third base? What are the Yankees doing at second base? There are a lot of unanswered questions that I'm sure Juan Soto wanted to ask as well. We don't know this for sure. We don't know what was said in that meeting. All we hear is the BS that we're hand-fed by the media, hand-fed by the owners, and hand-fed by Scott Boras. It was a good meeting. A couple of hours. Thanks, Hal. Really helpful stuff. But as I started this live stream off saying, the last time the Yankees were put in a position where they could not lose the main prize, the guy they had their eyes set on in free agency, Hal Steinbrenner pulled through. This is who it's going to come down to. Is he going to be able to justify paying Juan Soto potentially $700 million when he looks at his financials, when he looks at his projections from the guys who handle that stuff in the front office? Is it enough to justify handing out the largest contract, not deferred, in sports history? I wish I can curse on this. F yes. F yes. Frick yes. Of course it is. Of course it is. It was a match made in heaven last year. How many guys have you went out and your front office has went out and tried to acquire or acquired who came to New York and did not have it? They couldn't handle the media. They couldn't handle the pressure. They couldn't handle the booing. Juan Soto was not one of those guys. Of course, there was never one big portion of the season in which you were like, this guy sucks, like there was with Giancarlo Stanton that first year. Either way, the pressure was never too much for Juan Soto, and he always rose to the occasion. That in and of itself is enough of a reason to push this deal through and to do whatever you can to bring him back. And there are a million things. There are a million reasons why you bring back Juan Soto. But for me, as someone who has watched time and time again, stars were brought to the Yankees, fail to perform in clutch moments. That's what matters to me. That is what matters to me. With all of that being said, you finally got a guy, top of the world, top of the league, who actually showed up when it mattered the most. The same cannot be said about this guy that we keep mentioning throughout this show, Aaron Judge, who the Yankees gave $360 million to. Not even that guy performs in the clutch, but this guy does. So you paid the first guy, who is still yet to have over a 750 OPS in the postseason since 2018. But now you cannot let this guy go. You cannot let Juan Soto go. I genuinely think, and I think there was a time earlier on in this offseason. I know it hasn't been too long. The Yankees lost in the postseason 3 weeks ago. I believe 3 weeks ago to the night. Don't ask me how I know that. There was a time in this free agency process that I was dead set on the fact that Mets were going to get Juan Soto. I was dead set on the idea that money, not even just past a certain point, money altogether would be the driving force behind Juan Soto's decision. I am now of a different belief. I'm of a belief that if the Yankees are within $30 to $40 million, he will be a New York Yankee. And I also do believe that Scott Boras and Juan Soto will give the Yankees a chance to match or come close to whatever Steve Cohen is going to throw at Juan Soto. Because of what the Yankees learned in past years. What happened in 2014? What happened in 2014? The Yankees had a homegrown superstar in Robinson Cano. You always got the sense that the Yankees weren't totally entrenched on the idea of paying Robinson Cano the eventual exorbitant amount that he got from the Mariners. But either way, they didn't pay. You know what the backup options were? Yeah, the main backup option, Jacoby Ellsbury. How did that turn out? So hopefully at this point, Hal Steinbrenner has learned his lesson from 10 years ago. The Yankees spend. The Yankees issue a big you-know-what to opposing teams. That is what they do. That is how they've had success. spending the most money. Again, as I said before, in 2022, 2 years ago, Hal Steinbrenner and Steve Cohen, I don't know what it was, a handshake agreement, I don't know. An unsaid thing, I don't know. But they had an agreement. We will not go after your guy, Aaron Judge, is what Steve Cohen said to Hal Steinbrenner. And he didn't. And he didn't. There is no mutual respect involved in this one, though. There isn't. And unfortunately for Hal Steinbrenner, who's quite frugal, I say that as the Yankees have had the highest payroll on average over the last 20 years, but he's frugal in the sense of you're the New York Yankees, spend the freaking money. This could be tough for Hal. This could be tough. Because Steve Cohen, you know his checkbook runs way deeper than yours does. And if it's really down to money, you're going to lose out. You will lose out. The one thing besides the prestige, the aura of the Yankees, the idea that every game the Yankees play on the road, there's at least 25, 30% Yankee fans in said ballpark. Maybe besides Boston. That's important, right? What else is important is out of both teams that I believe this is going to come down to, the Mets and the Yankees have already devoted significant assets to being competitive now. The Mets just a year ago, before this magical run, and props to them. People, I have no hatred towards the Mets and their fans. They've got hatred towards me. They've got hatred towards my team. I don't take it personally. I understand what it's like to be the little brother. Actually, I don't. I'm fans of all the big brothers, but I understand what it's like to lose constantly, time in and time out. I've got empathy for Mets fans. But the idea that before this amazing run, the Mets were looking at a 2 to 3 year rebuild. They've got one really significant contract on the books. It's Francisco Lindor. Of course, they're still paying big money to Scherzer, Verlander. But the Mets, and this kind of goes to like the idea of like, yeah, they still have a lot more money. You know, they've less money allocated long term than the Yankees do, of course. The Yankees with 2 to 3 huge contracts, 2 realistically. Stan one is in this day and age not huge anymore. But the idea the Mets were looking at a long rebuild. And then we're like, oh shoot, look what we just did. We just went to the NLCS. We came within 2 games of going to the World Series. Huh. They were always going after Juan Soto anyway. But the fact that happened, listen, that will help the Mets. That will help their case. But the idea that the Mets have yet to allocate significant assets towards big guys. If I'm Juan Soto, I'm looking at the 2 teams and I'm like, all right, well, I'd rather go to the Yankees, who already have their number 1 guy. They already have their ace in Garrett Cole. They already have their generational bum in the postseason in Aaron Judge. They already have Giancarlo Stanton, a guy who you know time and time again you can count on when it matters the most in the postseason. And if I'm Juan Soto, along with, again, like I said, the prestige, the aura of the Yankees, and alongside the fact there is already familiarity with the Yankees organization, with Booney, as they like to call him, terrible manager the Yankees employ, and the rest of the team, in which it seemed like he was incredibly close to. All of that is a factor in this. It's not just money, guys. It isn't. This is all a ploy to drive up the potential payday that he gets from Scott Boras, who is the best in the business at this. Unless you're a pitcher named Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. Or if your name is Alex Bregman, because he's not getting a huge contract. No, it's not happening. Not happening. But this is why I'm confident. Is the idea that Hal Steinbrenner, and he reiterated that again, if you're just joining now, thank you. The idea that Hal Steinbrenner just said, he understands what the fans think. He understands what is at stake if they don't bring back Juan Soto. There's going to be pressure either way. You re-sign Soto, you've got to win. You got to win before Garrett Cole's contract is up. You got to win before Aaron Judge's contract is up. Honestly, you have to win before Giancarlo Stanton's contract is up. Who's going to replace his postseason value when he retires? Maybe Aaron Judge could get a better sports psychologist. Maybe he could become a better breather in the postseason. Maybe he could turn into what Giancarlo Stanton is. It's a long shot of happening, but maybe it could happen. The Yankees will need to win, and they will face pressure to not only pay out the money in Juan Soto's contract, but to go out and add more. And that's a lot. That's a lot. You don't get Soto, you maybe go out and get Corbin Burns. You maybe go out and get Alex Bregman. You do whatever it takes necessary to get back to where you were last year. That's going to be a tall task if you don't have Juan Soto back. But it's way different than actually bringing him back and having the security of the idea, knowing this is a pretty good roster. This is a World Series roster. Yes, we got incredibly lucky when it came to our opponents in the postseason, but we made it to where we had yet to make it in 15 years. The Yankees have no choice, guys. No choice. But to do whatever it takes to sign Juan Soto. Listen, if Steve Cohen is going to go to $1 billion, if he's going to make some egregious offer, so be it. So be it. I don't think any Yankee fan is going to be pissed if Steve Cohen just goes nuclear in order to sign Juan Soto over $800 million, over $900 million. It's going to suck. The Yankees are going to have to pivot. They're going to have to pivot quickly. And they're going to also have to eat the fact that they traded away a potential top 2, top 3 guy in the rotation in Michael King for a guy you weren't able to re-sign. That's the other thing, is who the Yankees gave up in that trade. It's like when the Knicks traded for OG Anunoby. They needed to re-sign him. That could have been a disaster. And the whole rumor surrounding that was they traded for Mikal Bridges. OG Anunoby got offended, thought that they were replacing him, and they ended up having to pay $10+ million more. That is what happens when you invest significant resources that aren't just money at a big player, at a guy who is proven to bring your team success. Look at OG Anunoby's plus minus. Look at Juan Soto's WAR. Remove him from this last team. They are not getting past the first round of the postseason. That's how important Juan Soto was and will continue to be for this team if they were able to re-sign him. Above all else, I think this is the Mets or the Yankees. I think the Yankees have a much better chance based off the reasons that I outlined. And we got a comment. You know what? Let's see what Gabe Hurst has to say. Good friend, Gabe Hurst, friend of the program. The Yankees are bottlenecked with huge contracts for the next 5 to 7 years and has expressed his desire to remain close to luxury tax while the Mets have the ability to add the top free agent in every class for the next 15 years. It's a good point. It's a good point. That is a good counter argument to what I had to say about the idea of the Mets, the fact that they have not been in a situation before this year to go out and compete. They thought this was going to be a rebuilding process. I still think that takes precedence to whatever hypothetical idea that you have in your head of the Yankees not going out and being willing to spend money past the luxury tax and try to win. To win, all I'll say is I think Hal Steinbrenner is going to have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And from his comments, it appears that he is going to be willing to do whatever it takes. What he had to say months ago about the luxury tax is not what he thinks now. As I said, you traded away some significant assets. You know how awesome it would have been to have Kyle Higashioka off the bench, backing up Austin Wells instead of Jose Noodle Arm Trevino? That was another guy you had to trade to get Juan Soto. So, Gabe, I really think that with all that being said, with the comments that Hal has made in the past, I do genuinely believe that he feels the pressure. And I do, on the flip side, I do think that Juan Soto sees these huge contracts the Yankees have already given out and understand the Yankees are in a position to win right now. Does Juan Soto really want to go to the Mets? Maybe Steve Cohen is going to go out there and sign. He's going to sign Juan Soto and Corbin Burns. I don't see that happening, but it's a possibility. But if it doesn't, you think Juan Soto is going to want to stick around each year for the big free agents to come in? He wants to win now. I understand he's signing for the next 12 to 14 years, but he's 26 in the prime of his career. He wants to win. The Yankees made the World Series last year. The Mets, maybe if they were in the AL, they would have, but they didn't. They didn't. And again, as I said, this could have been a fluke. The Mets were not prepared to win. They were not in a position to win. Earlier on in the season, you had everyone and their mothers calling for heads, calling out David Stearns, calling out Mendoza. The Mets sucked to start the year. They give them credit. They turned it around. But you never know. You never know with the team that is yet to dedicate huge contracts. Because, Gabe, they can go out and sign. Let's say they go out and sign Alex Bregman. Bregman's a bum. You have an Albert Pujols type situation. What are you going to do then? The Yankees have already given out big money to guys they know are going to perform, besides Aaron Judge's bum ass in the postseason. That's another story for another day. I digress for the 15th time here. All right, that'll do it for today. More Yankee stuff coming. More Knicks stuff coming. One Giant Step with Sean Morash previewing the Buccaneers game this weekend. So excited. Sterling Shepard returns home. And Tommy DeVito has a chance to ruin it all yet again for the New York Giants. So that'll do it. One Giant Step. Check that out tomorrow morning, wherever you get your podcast, or actually Friday morning. We're going to record it tomorrow morning. React to what Brian Dable had to say. It's terrible time to be a New York Giants fan, and hopefully it will be a better time to be a Yankees fan in these coming weeks leading up to the winter meetings. But that'll do it for today. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, if you're watching on YouTube, drop a subscription. If it's on X, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and be sure to give me a follow because more of this is coming in the future. So thank you again, and everyone have a good day. Go Yankees.